Все, нажал.
Да, давайте моторы. Берем Машу.
Все?
Берем Машу.
Володенька, мотор идет?
Который не
курит, да.
Давайте тишина.
Дураки.
Маркер колокольчик. Тишина.
Все пишут.
Рэнди, как ты относишься к современному искусству?
I like some modern art I don't get, but that's art. You know, it's like, even with the classics, there are some you go, oh, that's just great, and others you're like, oh, it's okay, you know. But some I can get into, and some I'm like, okay, I don't get what the artist who drew it or painted it or whatever, I don't get what they were trying to say. But there's others I can just stand and look at and get into the story, and it becomes my story. And it's a lot like, for me, it's a lot like me doing mime. You know, when I do mime, I never explain what I'm doing. I just do it, and then people see it through their eyes, just like with art. You know, it's like you see it through your eyes. It's going to mean something different to me than it would to you. And something I might see and go, this is just incredible. You go, I don't get it, you know. So but some things I really like, and some things I'm kind of like, eh.
Именно...
Володя, на сочинение с кухней.
Кто-то переговаривался. Никто не переговаривался.
Что там?
That was a good answer.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll remember it.
Да, давайте снимать.
Рэнди, на самом деле именно поэтому я и привела тебя на выставку, потому что считаю, что то, чем ты занимаешься, это тоже искусство. Потому что ты передаешь определенные чувства, эмоции, ситуации через те каналы коммуникации, которые очень близки именно тебе. Это пантомима. Но хочу начать твою историю с самого начала. Твоя любовь к городу Иваново кажется просто, какой-то не знающий границ. Ты впервые приехал сюда в 93-м году и настолько влюбился в этот город, что теперь живешь здесь. Расскажи, почему ты сюда вообще приехал и как ты принял решение остаться?
Well, that first time I came here, as we talked about, just the way that the people embraced, not just me, but even the art. It was a shock to me that it was so well embraced. But even more so, of course, I grew up during the Cold War era. So all I knew about Russia was what I heard through, well, let's just say what it is, government propaganda. And so, like when I came to Moscow the first time and was on Red Square, it was like I walked into my television set, you know. But of course, growing up, we had a black and white TV. So growing up, everything was in black and white. So when I walked on Red Square and I'm seeing everything and it's like so much color, so much life, I was like, it was surreal. It was so strange for me. But the fact that of course, I didn't see a lot of people in Moscow because it was very quick, just see the sights and come straight to Ivanovo. And I got here to Ivanovo and the people were so open, so accepting. Sure, they were curious because here's an American in our city. What is he doing here? You know, and there were problems with communication because I didn't speak Russian, but of course I had an interpreter at that time too. It wasn't Sergei, it was someone else. But just their openness, their curiosity, and then it wasn't a curiosity that pushed you away, it was a curiosity that wanted to bring you in, wanted you to be a part of their life, and they would invite me to eat or just to hang on the street and walk and talk and full of questions. I had questions, and so we were always learning from one another. And it was that openness, that accepting of me, that embracing of me. And every year I came back, of course, I would meet new people. I would still meet the old people, but I was always building new relationships. And they're all the same. I found the Russian people just to be so open, so accepting, and once they learned to me, it wasn't like, okay, we know about you now, who cares? You know, it was like, now we want to be your friend. And for me, a Russian friendship is so much deeper than an American friendship. I think it's because Russians are more open to showing their emotions. They're more open to, if they care about you, they will really tell you how much they care about you. And the word love for the Russians that I came in contact with, just the word love meant more than it did in English. You know what I'm saying? Because in English we say, I love everything. You know, I love a hamburger. I love the color blue, you know. But in Russia, love that word had a special meaning. And when I experienced it here, it was that drawing in, that relationship. Because every human being wants relationship. It's in us. That's our whole desire in life, is relationship with somebody. You know, I want to connect with another human being. And here it was so easy just to connect. You know, it wasn't like I'm so strange and foreign that maybe, you know, it was like, you're strange and foreign, I want to know everything about you, you know, and it was an honest curiosity. So that's what settled me on Ivanova. You know, I had established friendships and relationships, and we still communicate. I mean, I made a point, because I know that many times foreigners will come to, not just here, but to any foreign country, and they'll make quick friends. They'll say, we're right. This was back before I had email and everything. We'll write, we'll stay in communication, and then 2 weeks later, they forget to write. Americans are terrible about that. But I made a point that if I told someone, I will write you, I would write them. So it was such a special moment from being in the States to get a letter from Russia. You know, and it wasn't just the fact this came all the way across the world. It was the fact that this friend took the time to write to me. And I can't not write back. You know, I can't say, oh, that was nice, and take it from me. I have to give back. That's relationship. Not just for me, it's for me to give back too. And so I would always write back. And I had an American that knew about that. And he said, you're an unusual American because you actually correspond. And so through a year, I would correspond with them, come back, and then through another year. And so it just, relationship. It was all about relationship. And when people ask me, I say, you know, they say, what do you love about Russia? And I say, the people. I literally mean that, you know, because that's the base of my whole thing of being here, is the people. You know, and it sounds cliche, but it is. It's just the people, their Russian soul, I guess, their openness, the relationship, the deep relationship. So.
Я знаю, что когда ты впервые уезжал из России, то ты сел в самолет и заплакал. У нас в России говорят, что настоящие мужчины никогда не плачут. Тебе было 37 лет. Я понимаю, что тебя переполняли чувства и эмоции, но насколько вообще в Америке возможно такое, ну или как вообще в Америке люди относятся к тому, когда мужчина плачет? И что это значило вообще для тебя тогда?
Well, it depends on where you're at. Men in America don't openly cry. We have the same thing. You know, men don't cry. It's put into male children from the very beginning. Boys don't cry. You know, girls cry. Boys don't cry. But I'm an emotional person anyway, and I've found that if I don't let my emotion out, then it hurts me. Psychologically, it hurts me emotionally. You know, I want to be able to, I'm not going to be hysterical for no reason. The crying on the way back, it was just, I didn't want to leave. You know, like I said, I'd established those relationships, and I didn't want to see them broken, you know. And for me, I taught my son is open with his emotions. He's a little bit more closed than I am, but that's just his nature. But I never saw my dad cry. I never saw my dad cry at all. And my dad was very closed with his emotions. He really was. And literally, I was like almost 40 years old. I can remember it's the first time I ever heard him say, I love you, to me. you know, and I determined from a young age my kids would always know how I felt about them. So we were very open, you know. We're very open for hugging each other and telling each other, I love you. Like, I remember the first time that, because in my family, we just didn't say I love you. We just didn't say it a lot. You just never said it to each other. It was just, you knew it, so that was good enough. And I remember one time I decided I'm just going to tell my mom that I love her. And we were on a phone call. And got to the end of the phone call, and it was like, it was so funny because for me it was a big step to just say I love you to my mom, which is strange. But we got to the end of the phone call, I said, Mom? And she goes, yeah. And I said, I love you. And it was just dead silence. And she went, well, I love you too. I'm like, okay, bye. Not even 5 minutes passed, my phone rang, my sister. What did you do to Mom? And I said, I didn't do anything to Mom. She goes, she just called me crying, and she told me she loved me. And I'm like, oh, that's good, you know. It was just something we didn't do, you know. And in America, and a lot of, majority of the world, men are taught to be closed off. You know, you've got to be this strong rock, you know, no emotion. But we're human beings too, you know. We have emotions. Some of us express our emotions in different ways, but for me, I'm very open with my emotions because not to what we say, not to a fault where it's too much, you know, but if I feel like crying, I'm not going to go, no, you know, like a girl, you know, but I want to let it out because it does two things. It cleanses me inside, but it also shows other people my heart. You know, because if you're closed, you can't show your heart, and I want people to see my heart. I want people to see, if I care about you, I'm going to show you that I care about you. You know, I don't want to go, well, you know I care about you. You know, so me with my children, I'm very open. You know, my son, my daughters, they never know when I'm just going to walk up behind them and just reach over and give them a big hug. You know, I love you, and just walk away for no reason. And that's the way it should be, you know. I shouldn't have to, even with my wife, Luda, I don't wait for a special occasion. You know, I'll buy her flowers for no reason. And people go, oh, you're going to buy flowers for the 8th of March? And I go, maybe I will, maybe I won't. And they're like, how can you? I said, because if I do it on the 8th of March, I did it because I had to. Because it's the 8th of March, you have to give flowers. I would rather give flowers because I want to. You know? Sure, I'll buy her flowers on the 8th of March, but they don't mean the same if I buy it on what day? Any day. June the 3rd. Why June the 3rd? Prosta. Understand? So I'm very open with that because I want people to see how I feel. I'm not going to be fake for them. I'm fake enough when I'm doing it, being an actor, you know. But it also helps me in acting because I'm in touch with those emotions. So if I need to emote, I have a memory. I have, you know, I want you to, in a movie, if they said, I want you to show love, then I have a picture in my head of somebody that I love, and I know how to show that love. Oh, I want you to be angry. I have a picture of something or somebody made me angry, and I have it. I want you to be sad. Anything like that. I have times and people that I can refer back to and go, this is the emotion I felt then. This is what I'm going to do now. You know, but yeah, I might be an unusual man, but I would rather be open with my emotions and be unusual than, because if I'm closed, I'm just like every other man. People remember me.
Мне кажется, ты рассказываешь какие-то удивительные вещи, потому что, опять же, мы, насмотревшись голливудских фильмов, начитавшись какой-то литературы, думаем, что американское общество, которое привыкло к психологам, к различного рода коучам, на самом деле очень тепло относятся друг к другу в семье, что психологи вас уже давно научили говорить «я тебя люблю», обниматься, а сейчас ты рассказываешь, в общем-то, ситуацию, которую практически можно увидеть, не знаю, но если не в каждой второй, то в каждой третьей семье. У меня была такая семья, где тоже люди никогда не говорили друг другу «я люблю тебя». Конечно, сейчас ситуация исправляется, и это не может не радовать. Но, тем не менее, для того, чтобы тебе переехать сюда, в Россию, тебе понадобилось аж целых 7 лет. Каждый свой отпуск ты приезжал. И мне вот интересно, а Ты ведь был уже взрослым человеком, тебе было около 40 лет. То есть это было осознанное решение поменять страну, друзей, другой менталитет, другой язык, все другое. На что ты обращал внимание, прежде чем принять это решение? И вот что стало такой ключевой точкой, когда ты сказал: все, переезжаю?
Well,
Под бороду вперед.
Ой, Володька в самые моменты умеет всегда.
Возьми надо бегать в бой.
Что там?
Все, можем. Начинается. Сейчас не буду. Так у меня нет.
Сумка и кусочек ноги.
Отрежу.
Ну,
Новый
Да.
вырез.
чуть-чуть сумочку выше.
Сумочку.
Да, можно.
just answer. Just go ahead and answer.
Yeah.
Well, I found that I was constantly thinking about Russia. I mean, it was on my mind from the time I woke up to the time I went home. My first wife even said that it was like I had another mistress, you know, because I was just so into Russia. I started reading about Russian culture, reading about Russian history, just getting information. And then, even from that first time, back in 1993, when I went home, a friend of mine came up to me and said, "How did you like Russia?" And when I looked at him, I started crying again, and I said, "I want to live there." And he hugged me, and I hugged him, and he goes, "It'll go away." And I went, "I don't think it will," you know? And so it just, from that first time, I thought about it. Like you said, I came back every year. And in 1999, I'm a Christian, so I pray about a lot of things. And, well, I pray about everything, but I went to our church, where I went to church, and I was just there alone. There was nobody else there. And I was just praying, you know, about Russia and moving here and getting an answer, knowing when it was the right time. And you can call it what you want to, but just like inside me, it was almost like the thought came that, what if I was told never? You know? And just...
Можно мне... Нет, это кофе, дай мне мой с молочком. Спасибо. I'm so sorry.
Mm-hmm. 3, 2,
Yep.
1. And just that thought of never, you know, if I felt like that God had wanted me never to move here, I would have to be satisfied with that, because I wouldn't want to do what I felt like that God I believe in would not want me to do. I would have to be satisfied just coming every year. But it filled me with such sadness to even think that I would never, ever live here. And I was honest, again, I know I say I cry a lot, but I did. It just brought tears to my eyes to even think that I would never, ever live here. And then it was like that same experience, and it said, what if I said, now, it's time? And just the happiness and the joy, it was just like it poured into me. I was just so happy. And it was just like this peace in knowing that would be the right decision, you know? And I went to the leader of our church, you know, and he was surprised I was there, you know. He goes, "What are you doing here?" And I told him what I was doing. And he said, "Well, what do you feel?" And I told him the whole story, and he just looked at me and he said, "You know, sometimes peace is the answer." And I was like, yeah, you know, if I don't move, I'll never be at peace. And so it was just right then and there. I said, okay, that's it. Next year, I'm moving. Because I had things that I had to do to get ready. Like you said, you know, getting all the visa situation where I was working. I had a really good job. My mom still never forgave me for leaving that job, because it was a really good job. Good pay, good benefits. And I started the preparation. And I tell this story because it was a weird moment because I was, okay, I'm moving, I got everything ready. We bought our tickets, my 2 children were coming with me. We were at the airport, we were saying goodbye to our friends and the family that we were leaving behind. And it was time to get on the plane, and I started walking down the I forget what it's called, the thing that you get on the plane, and gangway. And as I walked through that door to get on the plane, first thought I had was, I'm about to walk into my destiny, or I'm about to make the biggest mistake of my life, you know? But then I just knew, this is what I was meant to do. I honestly believe this is where I was meant to be, and I'm doing what I was meant to do. So I never looked back after that. I never looked back at it. My friends used to ask me when I would return to the States for a visit, they'd go, oh, are you going to be moving back? I go, no, never. My mom, well, when are you coming home? Mom, I'm not. That's my home now. You know, and it literally is my home. People go, oh, it's because you've been there so long, but from 2000, it was my home. I came here knowing that I would never go back. And if I go back, I'll probably be ashes. So that was it, you know. It was just that decision was made, and I never second-guessed it.
А ты помнишь, как к тебе поначалу относились люди здесь, в Иваново? Может быть, ты чувствовал какое-то особенное к себе отношение, потому что американец в 90-е годы?
Еще одна. Вот как раз после я говорил, стук этот, об стул. Все.
No. Ready?
Да.
3, 2, 1. Well, honestly, I didn't have a lot of people treating me as unusual like I did when I would visit. Maybe it was my mindset because I knew I was here, and it wasn't crammed into 10 days. In the whole time that I've been here, there's only twice that I can remember. I was thinking about this the other day. There was only literally twice when I ever had anyone that was antagonistic to me because I was from America. And both times it was men who were drunk. You know, so I never feel threatened by a drunk man because they can't control and I can get out of the way. If they try to hit me, I can get out of the way because they're very strong. Anyway, but one was at New Year's, and we were walking on the street where everybody was out, and my son said something to me in English, and a drunk guy heard him and knew it was English and was offended because he was an American. But and the second time was just on transport, and this guy heard me say something to Sergey. Sergey was with me on transport, and I said something to him in English, and this guy heard me, and he went off. I mean, he was screaming at me on transport. But the thing was, in both situations, I didn't have to say or do anything. The Russian people didn't come after me, they came after those guys. You know, the guy on transport, the driver stopped and told him to open the door and said, get out now. And the Russians like, yeah, get out, you know. And they made him get off the transport. And then they looked at me going, we're so sorry. And I'm like, I'm okay. You know, the thing was, I didn't understand anything he said, so it didn't affect me. You know, I just knew this man was screaming at me. When in this instance with my son, this guy came after my son. He literally was coming to hit my son, and Russian people stepped between them and told him no. You know, so people have always protected me. I wasn't treated so weird and unusual. Even my Russian teacher that I had here, she got frustrated because I wouldn't try to speak Russian. And it finally took her she looked me dead in the eye and she said, Randy, you can speak Russian. She said, but the thing is, people will look at you and they don't know you're American because of the way you're acting, the way that you've assimilated into the culture. She said, they won't know you're American or foreign until you speak. But then they'll appreciate the fact that you tried to learn their language. And her saying that freed me. I was like, okay, it may be bad Russian, but I'll attempt, you know. And if people don't understand, they'll ask, and then I can either mime what I want to do or try to figure out a different word. So I never felt set apart. I never felt like the white crow, as the Russians say, you know. Doing mime, I become a white crow because people, in Ivanova, they're like, we don't have any other mimes here, you know. We do now, but then it didn't. So, but they never, on the street in everyday life, I never felt set apart as the white crow. Maybe because I did just blend in until I spoke, you know. But yeah, people have always just embraced me as one of their own. So.
Я здесь с тобой соглашусь. В любой нации есть, в любой нации, в любом народе всегда есть хорошие люди, есть плохие. И странно там по одному или двум негативным людям судить о целом народе. Но тем не менее, как ты заметил, есть все же общие, схожие черты у всех людей той или иной национальности. Например, мы русские, и это очень часто замечают иностранцы, на первый взгляд достаточно закрытые. Ты это тоже заметил. А потом, когда узнаешь нас немного ближе, мы такие теплые, открытые и очень ранимые. У американцев же в основном дежурная улыбка, но внутри бетон. И их не сильно там что-то волнует. И вот с этой позиции, ну, как мне кажется, может быть, я ошибаюсь, может быть, за дежурной улыбкой тоже скрывается что-то нежное и трепетное. И вот с позиции вот этой разницы и с позиции того, что ты показываешь людей, ситуации не словами, а в основном жестами, кого показывать и изображать сложнее, русских или американцев?
I don't think anyone is more difficult than the other. First off, you're right about the Americans and the smile and the closed mouth. I find Russians actually to be more open than Americans. Again, it comes back to culture. Like we had said before, that there are things that I can do that's Russian culture, things I can do that's American culture, and they wouldn't understand if I did it. But as far as, I'm trying to think if there's something that makes it difficult to portray a Russian or something that makes it difficult. I know, for me, because it's better now, but in the beginning, trying to mime and do something that was about Russians, about Russia, I was always conscious I didn't want to offend anyone, but at the same time there were things that I were doing in Russians would be like, we don't do that. And I realized, I'm trying to think of a specific example, but it was things that I would do as an American saw a Russian, but a Russian didn't see themselves that way. You know, and Americans, I can, because I grew up in America, I can make fun of Americans all day, but I don't want to make fun of Russians, you know, and it's not a fear, it's just I respect them too much to make fun. I can do things that are lighthearted, but I would never do anything out of malice or something to really get to somebody. But as far as one being harder than the other, I wouldn't say they really are, because it's just, I just change cultures, and my mind just changes cultures, you know, but I agree, like I said, with the fact that Americans have that smile, and the thing about the smile is, you see the smile is from here down. It's just right here, because you can look at the eyes and the eyes aren't in it, you know. And I find Russians to be a little bit more open, but maybe it's the Russians that I hang around with, I don't know. But I mean, I've had Russians I've never met before come up and hug me, you know, and I'll be like, who is this person? You know, but okay, you hug me, I'll hug you back. You know, and in America that would never happen. It would never happen. Americans just don't come, oh, hey, and hug you, you know. Americans are we have our space, you know, and you don't invade that space. Handshakes. You know, in Russia, you walk in a room, you shake hands with every man there. In America, whoever you're talking to, you shake the hand. You shake a woman's hand. It's just a very formal thing, but it doesn't go beyond that. You know, there's actually a lady in America that's friends with mine, and she was talking to me one time about Russia and Russians. You know, what about the culture? What's different? And I said, do you want to see something that's different? And she's like, yeah. And I stepped forward, and I just got right next to it, because Russians, they would just be right. You know, they don't stand back like Americans. We have just like, you know, you stand away from each other. And I just stepped up right there, and I said, this is the way my Russian friends talk to me. And she's like, I can't do this. And I'm like, no, this is, you want to see what Russians like this? And she took a step back, and I take a step forward. I say, this is how close we are. We just talk like this all the time, you know. So that's a cultural thing, you know. Americans have this, we have this distance. We got to keep this distance. And Russians, it's like there is no distance, you know. When we were talking about eating, you know, eating out of the same thing, it's still that same thing, you know. Americans know it has to be my personal, it's here. Don't touch my plate. Don't touch my food, you know. But in Russia, it's like, you're going to eat that up, you know. Just,
Yeah.
It's more openness, you know. I love it. So.
А еще за кадром ты рассказал мне еще одну такую смешную, а еще за кадром ты мне рассказал еще одно смешное наблюдение, что если люди сидят за столом в Америке, и ты протягиваешь собеседнику, например, печенье, говоришь, будешь печенье? Он говорит, нет. Ты говоришь, ну окей. А если в России, расскажи об этом сам.
Yeah. Well, like you said, in America, you get one chance for anything. You know, it's like, for instance, cookies. Would you like some cookies? No. That's it. It goes back. You will not be asked again. But it's my thing over here. I always say, this is one of the first things I do. Would you like a cookie? No. Oh, come on. Just a cookie. No. Oh, just one. Just a little bit. Come on. You know, and you got to ask 3 times. You know, that's the thing. I usually take it further. I usually just keep asking, you know. But, yeah, and in America, that would be, oh, what are you doing? I said no. No means no. And I learned very early on in Russia, no does not mean no. No means not at this present moment. But, yeah, that's, and I love doing it, you know, just you know, of course, I learned that just from being at parties, and usually it's with vodka or some kind of alcohol. Would you like some? No. Oh, come on. And I use that in my mind when I'm at a party, you know. I was like, you know, do you want something? But yeah, I love it. I love that Russian thing, you know. I know I've learned, just say yes the first time, and you know, whether you want it or not, just say yes and it's done, you know. It doesn't bother me now. At first it did bother me, you know. But yeah, that's a very Russian thing. Another Russian thing I learned is when I speak Russian, not trying to be so perfect with my Russian. It's a funny story. I used to have an apartment that my stop, my ostanovka, was Lenin. And so I was studying Russian here, and so I would get on, and I would be getting close, and I'd go, na Lenina. And the driver would go, не понял. На Ленина. Я не понимаю. Yes, stop. And I'm like, I'm saying it. Why is he not getting it? And so I started, okay, I'm just going to pay attention to the Russians around me. And so we were on it one time, and I learned the clue. So the next time, I heard the way Russians said it, and so I was like, okay, the next time I know how to say it. So next time I was on transporting, we're going, and nobody else was getting off at my stop, so I went, no. It's like, хорошо. You have to say it like you've had just a little bit too much to drink, you know, because my Russian, I was trying to be sure I pronounced every letter, you know, you just, like, when I speak English, I'm not being very sure that every word I speak it and it just flows. And so, Nalenina became Nalena.
А я знаю, что у тебя был еще смешной случай с переводом фразы «я не знаю». О, я не понимаю. Расскажи, как это было.
Well, and it's not just, first off, it's not just in Russia. People in the United States do this too. If you say you don't understand, I don't understand can mean two things. It means I didn't understand what you said, or it can mean I didn't hear what you said. So therefore I didn't understand. So we would have friends that would come over to visit sometimes from America. And they had, did their little quick study of Russian phrases of what to say, like where's the toilet, and one of the things was I don't understand. Я не понимаю. And so they would be so proud, but we would tell them, don't tell a Russian, я не понимаю. And they'd be like, why? And I said, because they usually think that you didn't hear what they said. So they'll just say it louder. And if you keep saying it, they'll just get louder and louder. Like, well, what should we say? We say, я не понедельник. Because if you say that to us, they'd be like, where did this come from? You obviously don't understand anything, and they'll stop. So we always taught them that, just say, я не понедельник. And it's the same, like I said, it's the same way in America. If you come to America and you learn that phrase, I don't understand, they'll just say it to you louder in English, So, because it was too hard to teach them, я не понимаю русский язык. What? Я не понимаю, they could say quickly, But yeah, it's just easier to say я не понедельник and let it go.
Ну да, в целом, что взять с человека, который говорит тебе «я не понедельник»?
I have another funny story about not understanding. First time I went to my friend Sergei's house, we were eating, and I was just studying Russian language, and I finished what was on my plate, and his mom said, "Всё." And I thought she said, "Всё." So I went, "Yes." And I start talking to Sergei. And I look, and she's put more food on my plate. I mean, even like I just started. And I'm like, what is this woman doing? She put more food on my plate. So I thought, well, I have to eat what's on my plate, like a good Russian. If it's there, you got to eat it. So I ate it, and I was like, oh man, I'm so full, And so she goes, "Всё?" And I go, "Да." And Sergei goes, No. Mom is saying, "Еще." But you're hearing, "Всё." Yeah, I thought she said, "Всё." And I said, yeah. She thought it was hilarious, because she was saying, "Еще," but I'm hearing, "Всё." And I'm like, yeah, "Всё." Okay, "Всё."
Рэнди, думаю, что многие наши зрители знают, что в России достаточно сложное миграционное законодательство, и ты тоже с этим столкнулся, и по этой причине тебе пришлось уехать из страны аж на целых 5 лет. Расскажи, что ты чувствовал в это время? Скучал ли ты по Иваново? И что тебе не хватало вот такого прям русского в Америке?
That was probably the most difficult time in my life. And I've been through a lot of difficult things, but having to leave, I've never been more brokenhearted. I actually did a finale concert before I left, and by the end of it, I was gone. I couldn't even think straight, because having to leave was beyond anything I'd ever imagined. Even now, it hurts to even think about it. But one of the good things was when I went back, that kind of helped soften the blow. Actually, Sergei went with me and Luda went with me. And well, Sergei went first to kind of help me get things settled and get ready for Luda to come. And then he stayed for a while when Luda came to help her get acclimated to American culture. She had another Russian there to explain things to her. But yeah, I was back to like it was back in the 90s. I was thinking about it every single day and missing it every single day. We were Skyping every day, 2 and 3 times. I missed my friends. I missed getting together on special occasions. I had friends that were getting married, and I couldn't be at their wedding. I have this one special friend, Ilya, and he was very close to me. He's like a son to me. Even now, he's like a son to me. And he was getting married, and I could not be a part of his wedding. So I actually, without him knowing, I actually recorded an audio of a congratulations to him. And Sergei was at his wedding, and of course, and Sergei told him that he brought a special gift for them. And Sergei just played the recording. And he said, as soon as I started talking, Ilya looked at his wife and went, "It's Randy." And they started crying. Because for them, it was special that I remembered them on their day. And then, of course, I don't want to make people cry just for the sake of making them cry. And I knew that it would probably be an emotional time, so I made sure that at the end of it, I started yelling Gorka at the end of it. So it kind of lightened the mood for everybody. Everybody's like, oh, he even included Gorka. You know, of course, everybody had to stand up and drink. But it was a difficult time. I mean, I did things that I had never done before by being in the movies and you know, just doing things that I enjoyed, but there wasn't that emotional connection to it. I loved being with my children. I loved being with my grandchildren. But still, there was this whole piece of my heart that was left here, you know, and I wasn't complete. And I knew I wasn't complete. So my whole thing was, how will I get back? How can I get back as soon as I can get back? And as soon as the opportunity came to get back, it was like they said, boom, you can come back. And I'm like, I'm buying my plane tickets now. That's it. You know, I don't want to be here longer, you know. And my children understood it because they knew and they could see that I wasn't completely there emotionally. And it, like I said, it was back to like it was in the 90s when I was just thinking about it constantly. I remember there was one time when it ended up Sergei and Luda both had to come back to Russia at the same time. She was coming back because of her mom, and Sergei's visa was done, so he had to come back. And they left on the same day within just a few hours of each other. I have never, ever been that so emotionally destroyed. I was literally destroyed. I couldn't think, after telling them bye in the airport, which was another whole emotional thing. As a matter of fact, when Sergei left first, and we were telling each other goodbye, and he walked through where security was, and the lady at security was watching us, you know, and we said our byes, and we were both pretty emotional, and he walked through, and the lady looked at me, and she said, "I wish I had a friend that it hurt that much to say goodbye to." And then I had to wait with Luda to tell goodbye to her. And I made it through that, still an emotional wreck. And I remember going out and sitting in my car. And just as I sat in my car, I looked up and a plane was leaving. And I knew that was serious pain. And I've seen people do it before, and I never thought I would do it, but I literally screamed as loud as I could in my car because I was so emotionally hurt. And I never, ever want to go through that again. Never go through that again. It's the worst day of my life. And I kept that memory, and I will always use it whenever if someone says, show some sadness. I'll always remember telling my wife and my best friend goodbye and watching that plane take off. It was horrible. So getting back to Russia became my goal. My whole life was based on getting back to Russia. And I always said 5 years. It was always in my heart and always in my thought, 5 years, 5 years. And it was almost exactly 5 years to the day that I came back. So I was like, okay, I made my goal. And I'm back, and like I said, moving back is not an option. You know, I'll have to be dead, or they'll have to force me at gunpoint. You know, so this is home. This is it.
помнишь свое первое ощущение после 5 этих лет, когда ты приехал в Россию?
Well, my first thing, of course, I wanted to kiss the ground. I literally did. I was like, why can't I just be, why do I have to go straight into the airport? Let me just go and just touch the ground. I just want to touch the ground. And then I remember just this feeling of relief, this feeling of happiness, I'm back, I'm back. I didn't care about going through immigration. It was all just like automatic for me. I was just like, let me get out of this airport, Because Luda and I were together and we had traveled. It was a long trip back. We had some problems with, not us having problems, the airlines had some problems. So we were like, took us longer than we meant to. But I also knew that Sergey was meeting us at the airport. And I still have the picture of when we met, because I was like, I walked out of after getting through immigration, I walked out and I just looked up and it was like, almost like a movie, I look up and there he is, and of course I knew that I was grinning from ear to ear, because we hadn't seen each other. We had just seen each other maybe once every year because we would meet in another country, And he just came up and he just grabbed me in this biggest hug and he said, welcome home. And I was like, that's all I wanted to hear. Just get me in the car, get me back to Ivanova. I never kissed the ground because, that's a little dirty, but still, I wanted to really bad. And it's good to be back, It's still, I mean, even all these years, it's like, it's good to be here. Every so often when I'm walking on the street, I just look around at all the buildings and stuff and go, I'm in Russia and I'm happy. And I don't want to be anywhere else.
Ты очень часто упоминаешь Сергея. И, насколько мне известно, изначально Сергей был твоим переводчиком, а теперь стал самым близким другом, партнером и практически членом семьи. И мне интересно по этому поводу, а возможно ли вообще такое в Америке? То есть, с одной стороны, я понимаю, что для человеческих отношений нет никаких границ. То же самое, как и в Америке. Ты можешь с кем-то познакомиться на работе, подружиться, стать лучшими друзьями. Но с другой стороны, очень много сейчас пишут о законе о харассменте, и там не совсем понятно, что в Америке можно, что нельзя. Может быть, ты сможешь как-то объяснить более понятным языком, что можно, что нельзя, и может ли действительно человек, твой партнер по работе, стать твоим лучшим другом?
Well, the problem with that question is the things that are allowed and not allowed keep changing quite frequently, so I'm not sure that I'm up to date on that. I kind of am, when I go back to America, I'm still a little bit apprehensive about what can I do, what can I not do, what's changed since I was here last time, so, but as far as like people you work with, there's just certain things you don't do. You have what we call a working relationship, which means we work together. We can be friendly with each other and be friends, but you don't see each other outside of work unless you're at a company party or something. Every place I've worked, I made friends, and they're still my friends, and we still communicate, It's not this really close bond friendship, but there's just, sometimes you cross lines with realizing that you've crossed a line. I had one instance where a lady was that I worked with, and we were in an office full of a lot of people, and we're just all talking, and it's not just me and her. It's like all of our group is having lunch, and we're all talking, and she's having some problems with her husband and stuff like that, and she was saying some of the things he was doing, and it wasn't a good relationship. And I was like, well, maybe you should just kind of separate for a while and see. And it was an innocent statement. Everybody was like, everybody was like, maybe just kind of take some distance between you and then maybe you can get back together. But I didn't realize that she was infatuated with me, and she had it in her head that she and I should be together. Of course, I was married at that time, and it was never in my head, And later, she had some problems at work, and so to protect herself, she started talking about how that she was being harassed at work, and how I had tried to get her to leave her husband, and it turned into this huge thing where, like, what we call human resources, the people that are overall employees, call me in and go, what have you done, you know? And I'm like, I didn't do anything, you know? And it's like, I had crossed a line I didn't know I had crossed. So sometimes you can cross that line without knowing it. Sometimes it's just friendly advice. So by that, you are very standoffish with your friends or people that you work with. But at the same time, you're friendly, but you don't involve them in your personal life. That's usually the ground rule. Don't involve them in your personal life. But it does change. And like you said, it's different here in Russia. You know, Sergey and I, like I said, like I said, he was, funny story. He, of course, was my interpreter. When we first met, he wasn't my interpreter, and I had some problems with the shower in my bathroom, and he knew how to fix it. And so through some friends, they said, we know a guy. So he came, and he fixed the shower. And I was there with my kids, and he like opens the door, and he goes, after he finished work, he goes, I'm going to take a shower, and just close the door. And I'm like, and my kids are like, is he taking a shower in our bathroom? And I'm like, yeah, you know, we don't even know him. It's pretty much the first time we met him, you know, and he's taking a shower in our house. You know, and it was like, this is so strange, you know. And we laugh about that story now, but then later on when he was my interpreter, because I was doing so much and not understanding the language, pretty much we lived together. We were together almost 24/7, and as a matter of fact, it turned into that situation because we became roommates. When my children moved back to America to be with their mom, he moved in, and he moved in strictly for the reason that he was helping me adjust to now all of a sudden I'm alone, and I haven't been alone since I got married the first time. So it was being alone and being in a foreign culture, and he moved in and he helped me get through that situation. I told people that have talked about our relationship, I said, but you're my friend, but you weren't there to see me all those times when I had just lost it because I missed my kids so much. You weren't there when I was frustrated because I didn't understand something. You weren't there to help me through those times. And Sergey was. That's why we became so close. And we became roommates. Some people said we became like an old married couple, you know, because we would argue, we would correct each other. It just, and just that bond of friendship just got so strong. Like when you were talking with Luda, when I was dating, he was there. He was, you know, and now his wife has come to me and go, thank you. You taught him how to be a married man, you know, because if we had conflicts, we learned how to work it out, you know, and now in his relationship with her, he knows how to work it out, you know. If she gets upset, he learned from me being upset, okay, we're going to get over this, you know. We'll get through it. And so we joke about how we taught each other. Another joke was that Sergey studied German language. He didn't study English language. He had a friend who studied English or knew English, and she taught him grammar. So that's about all English he knew. But when I asked him to be my interpreter, he said, well, I don't know that much English. And I said, I'll teach you English and you can teach me Russian. And we were like, okay, that was like our agreement. And obviously I'm a better teacher because he speaks English much better than I speak Russian. But he speaks American English, and Russian studied British English. When he was at the university, he was studying English language, and he turned in a report and got a bad grade on it. And I helped him with it. I'm like, what do they mean? That's perfect English. And the teacher told him, that's American English, that's not British English, you know. Yeah. So there's lots of funny stories with this language. You know.
Действительно, Сергей оказался с тобой в сложное время, потому что ты не просто поменял семью, потому что ты не просто поменял страну, не просто принял другой менталитет, другой язык, все было другим, но я знаю, что еще и после развода дети остались в Америке. Ну, то есть поначалу младшие, насколько мне известно, приезжали с тобой, а потом все-таки приняли решение остаться в Америке. Как ты думаешь, почему им не понравилось здесь, в России?
Well, when I got divorced, my oldest daughter was already married, and then during the time before I moved to Russia, my second daughter got married. Then I was with my two youngest, like we said, here for a year. But they had been with me almost 6 years, just me as a single father raising them. And they were 13 and 12. In America, when you turn 18, you're like considered an adult, and that's when you really, a lot of teenagers leave home, you know, move out on their own, that type of thing. So they were looking at that, you know, that they were, one was already a teenager, one was becoming a teenager. And so they wanted some time with their mom, you know. So I had a choice, you know, I could forbid them. Legally I had the right, you know, I had custody of my children. But I knew that if I said no, that it would put a wall between me and them, because I understood that they wanted to be with their mom. Their mom and I were divorced, so we weren't getting back together. But that didn't mean that she divorced my kids. You know, she was still their mom, and kids want their mom. And so when we went back to the States, and they told me this, I, of course, went to my lawyer, my divorce lawyer, and I said, so, you know, we need to do, what do we need to do to make this work so that they can be with their mom? And he said, well, I'll tell you, you're making the right decision, because if you take this to court, your kids are old enough that the judge is going to make them stand up and choose. He's going to ask them in front of everybody, who do you want to live with? He said, do you want to put your kids to that? I was like, no. I will never make them choose between me and their mom. You know, I may not get along with their mom, but I make them choose. So it was better for me to sacrifice my happiness. I mean, I was happy with them. I love my kids. I want to be with them, you know. But it was a question of, do I want to do it just for me? Because, oh, this makes me happy, and break their hearts, and then make them hate me because I won't let them sit with their mom? Or do I want them to be happy, you know? And so they moved back, you know, and it was difficult, and it was difficult saying our goodbyes again. But I knew that they were going to be happy, and that our relationship would still be strong. And it still is strong today. And I just, that was it. I wouldn't break their hearts. I wouldn't hurt them for my personal happiness. So they stayed. They grew into, you know, all my kids are great women and men and a man. But through that, they saw how much I loved them, because they saw how much it hurt me. And they were sorry that they hurt me, but they understood why I was hurting, because it was my choice. You know, it was my choice to hurt for them so they could be happy. And that's what a parent's supposed to do. You know, it's not just there, it's in all situations. I mean, when my daughters got married, I lost it every time. You know, because I wasn't losing my daughter, but I was losing my daughter. You know?
I respect your choice.
I cried when my son got married, so.
Kids need the mother.
And I was the one marrying them. I was the one officiating the ceremony, and I'm still standing there crying. So, anyway.
А в чем, на твой взгляд, главное отличие семьи по-русски от семьи по-американски?
Closeness. Just that there are different, Russians raise their kids differently than American kids in some situations, which I'm used to now, but at first I was like, oh, you don't do it that way. But American families tend to be a little bit more strict with their children in some instances. American families, I find, it's like this. They're either too strict or too, what we say, lenient, you know, letting their kids get away. There's very few that's a happy medium, you know. My kids are the exception. They're perfect, of course. But Russian families are they're more open with their education. They're more, I'm talking about parents with children education. They're more like I was with my kids. I'm very open with my kids. You ask me a question, you're going to get an honest answer. I'm not going to give you some fairy tale, you know. Like with Santa Claus. My wife, at that time, she wanted to do the whole Santa Claus thing. And I'm like, it's a lie, you know. But I will cooperate. But I always told my kids, if you ever want to know if Santa Claus is real or not, and you ask me, make sure you want to know the answer. Because I may not give you the answer you want to hear. I didn't tell them he wasn't real. I just said, you may not, you know. So they knew that if they ever asked me, I was going to give them an honest answer. And I see that a lot in the Russian family, you know. The honesty with their children. The openness with their children, which you don't see a lot in the American family, you know. The closeness, like I said, of families that have both parents there, the closeness that I see between the fathers and their children and the mothers and the fathers and just that whole unit together. You know, I see it in America, they're together, but they're not together. And that's not in a bad way, it's just they have so much going on that you know, if they have to be a unit together, then in a situation, they'll all be together, but usually they're all in different places. But just that relationship and closeness that families have with each other. You know, even in one-parent families, like a single mom, I still see that closeness. I still see that protection, that openness, that if you ask me a question, I'll give you an honest answer. And kids know that they'll get that honest answer, whatever the question is, you know. And there are some times that, like Sergei's kids will ask questions, and I hear the answer that they're giving, and I'm like, that's just a little bit too much information, or that's just, you know. But that's not my culture, you know. But it's a lot like me, because even when it came to the question that every parent dreads of where do babies come from, you know, all my kids, I knew they would ask the question, and when they finally did, I would look at them and I'd say, okay, I'm going to tell you the answer, but if you get uncomfortable, you just tell me and I'll stop.
Do you give real information?
You know? And so they're okay, you know, and I would start telling biologically exactly what happens, and they are. I really remember my oldest daughter on this, I guess because it was the first time I had done it. And I'm just telling, and I don't even know how far I got, but I just remember her going, okay, stop. I'm like, okay. And I just shut up. And she went to her room, and she thought the whole situation, you know, and she comes back a little bit later, maybe 30 minutes later, and she sits back down and she goes, okay, go ahead. You know, and I finished telling her, and then we got to the end, and she was like, okay. So now she knows. That not only gives her knowledge, but it protects her in the world, because she can't be lied to by some guy that just wants to have sex with her, you know, because she knows what's going on here, you know. So I'm always open with my kids, always open, you know, even with Santa Claus. Daddy, is there a Santa Claus? And the first thing I do is go, do you really want to know the answer? You know. And I remember also my second daughter going, no, not right now, and she just leave, you know. But I'm open with them, and I'm honest, but I don't do it just to do it. I don't give them the information if they don't ask for it. But if they ask for it, they're going to get a truthful and honest answer from me.
А какой, кстати, самый распространенный ответ в Америке, когда ребенок спрашивает, откуда я взялся? В России говорят, в капусте нашли.
Storks. We were always, you know, storks brought the baby. But then of course we had this big craze called Cabbage Patch Kids. And so what you were saying about, you know, kids coming from the Cabbage Patch, it really, I had heard that, but it wasn't as prevalent as the storks bring the babies. But that really just, it turned it into the same thing, you know, oh, they were born in the Cabbage Patch, you know, type thing. I don't remember what my parents told me. Of course, I was the youngest of 5 kids, so I learned a lot through my brother and my sisters, you know. And so I didn't ask a lot of those questions because they told me what
You
I
get
wanted,
real
know.
information.
Yeah. So I don't remember what my parents told me, but I remember hearing people telling kids, you know, the storks bring them. We even had cartoons about it, you know, so it was all about the stork, not about the cabbage.
Рэнди, у меня осталось 3 вопроса, которые я задаю всем своим гостям. Ты готов?
I think so. I think so.
3 главных качества русской души.
Openness, relationship, openness, relationship, and fellowship. Just this wanting to spend time with each other, wanting to know each other. For an English speaker, relationship means one thing and fellowship means another. Relationship is just how 2 things are connected. And Russians like to connect. I feel connected to Russians that maybe I don't even know, you know, like just on the street. I just feel that connectedness. So we have a relationship, but then fellowship is getting to know them, you know, and having time with them, and just, so those 3 things, yeah, relationship, openness, and fellowship.
3 вещи в России, к которым ты никак не можешь привыкнуть.
Solodka, Salah, there's 2 big things, and customer service. Because I have a diploma in business management, and I worked a lot in customer service, and you don't see that. You've seen it more now here. But there are times when I'll go in a store, and the way that I'm treated in that store, I'll look at my wife or I'll look at something and I'll go, if I was manager here, that person would have been fired right now. Right now. I'm not, you know. So and that was a big thing because that was my job, you know. So customer service is like, I can't get used to it. I can't get used to the bluntness of some things. We have a funny story where we were in Moscow and we were in a hurry to get on the metro to get to the airport, and we had to hurry. And Sergei gives the lady the money for the tickets for the metro. And I think maybe it was 1,000 rubles, something like that, you know, 500. And he puts it in, slides it under, and he goes, you know, two tickets. She goes, I don't have change. And he goes, I don't have change either. And she goes, well, go get you some change. And he's like, I don't know where to go get change. And I'm sitting there like, what are they doing with each other, you know? And so I was just like, see, that's bad customer service, because in America, if you take the money, then it's your responsibility now. So, yeah, customer service is a big thing. And Solodka and Salah. Solodka, no, it was Salah. We had a big joke about it, that when I would be somewhere and somebody would offer it to me, I would go, no, I won't eat it. And they'd go, Randy, when are you going to eat it? You know, it's Russian, when are you going to eat it? And I would always say, when Sergei gets married, then I will eat it. And all my friends knew that. It was a joke, but they all knew it, and they held me to it. And at his wedding, I had to eat it. And so I was the main witness, the best man at his wedding. So when it came time for my toast, I made my toast, and then I said, and I promised you this, and I'm a man of my word, and I picked it up and ate it. I didn't like it.
I don't understand. This is a salad with a селедка? The salad with селедка, you mean?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Селедка под шубой, you mean, right? Селедка под шубой?
Oh, it's maybe I'm mispronouncing it. It's the fat back salo.
Ah, salo.
Yeah. I was saying that.
Я думала,
Okay,
салат.
anyway. So I make my speech, make my toast, and I take it and I said, "Man of my word," and I ate it. And as soon as it hit my mouth, everybody there started cheering and applauding. Everyone was waiting for that moment, and I haven't eaten it since. I don't like the flavor. I don't like the feel of it. I just don't like it.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
Что русскому нужно для счастья?
What does a person need to be happy? Let me kind of, what do I think they need, or what do I see that they need?
You think. What do you think?
What do I think that they need? Well, again, I go back to relationship. Relationship, it's a big thing for me. So I think every Russian, of course, needs relationship. They need that person in their life that they can be themselves in front of, totally and completely be themselves in front of, and won't be judged. What else do they need? They need family. That's still a relationship, but and they need time to have fun, to whether it be a vacation or a party or something, just a time to just go, okay, forget about work, forget about all my obligations, and let's just have fun. And Russians know how to do that, and that's another thing I love about being here. It's like, this past week, Sergey and I went to the Banya, and I told him just having that time was totally quiet. We hardly even talk to each other in the Banya because we're just so used to, he has his children and I have, people I'm dealing with, and we're having all this noise, and it's just like to be in the Banya and just totally relax, total silence. And it was like, and every Russian needs that. They need that time to do something, to just get away from all the noise, the responsibilities, and everything that's coming at you, and just go, okay, I'm here and I'm me. Whether it be a Banya or whether it be a party, and we know how to party. And we look for a reason to party.
Рэнди, спасибо тебе огромное за это интервью, спасибо за твою откровенность. И несмотря на то, что мы активно сравнивали две наши страны, я думаю, все-таки главное помнить, что хорошо там, где мы есть.
Yes, and to do our best to make it the best place, not to make it worse.
Спасибо. Это проект «Мы и они на выезде», и я его автор Мария Шахова. Подписывайтесь на наш канал, ставьте лайки и обязательно пишите комментарии, мы все читаем. Ну и, конечно, подписывайтесь на нашу группу в ВК и Телеграм-канал, ведь все, что не вошло в основной выпуск, теперь будет там.
И еще
Да.
разочек.
Все? Это проект «Мы и они на выезде», и я его автор Мария Шахова. Подписывайтесь на наш канал, ставьте лайки и обязательно пишите комментарии. Мы все читаем. Ну и, конечно, подписывайтесь на нашу группу в ВК и Телеграм-канал, ведь все, что не вошло в основной выпуск, теперь будет там.